My sister mocked my fake business. She didn't know I was her silent partner worth 300 million. The night my sister laughed at me, everyone at the dinner table joined her. I remember the sound clearly. It wasn't just laughter. It was the kind of laughter that tells you people have already decided who you are and who you'll never become. Come on, my sister Lily said, wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. Stop pretending to be an entrepreneur. You run a tiny online shop from your bedroom. My parents smiled awkwardly. My uncle shook his head. And I just sat there quietly, staring at my plate. Because none of them knew the truth. Not even Lily. Especially not Lily. The funny thing about success is that people think they can see it. They think it has a loud voice, a fancy car, and expensive clothes. But sometimes, success sits quietly at the dinner table and lets everyone believe it's nothing. And that night, my sister had no idea she was laughing at the person who secretly owned half of her company. 3 years earlier, Lily had called me in the middle of the night. I still remember the panic in her voice. I'm in trouble, she said. The investors pulled out. If I don't find funding in 2 weeks, the company is dead. At the time, Lily's startup was her entire life. She had spent 4 years building it. A small tech platform that connected small businesses with digital marketing tools. But the truth was the company was drowning. Bills were piling up, employees hadn't been paid in 2 months, and investors had lost faith. I've asked everyone, Lily said that night. Banks, investors, friends, nobody believes in it anymore. I stayed quiet on the phone. Do you believe in it? She finally asked. I didn't answer right away. Because Lily and I had always lived in different worlds. She was the confident one, the star student, the ambitious founder everyone admired. I was the quiet one, the one people assumed had no big plans. The one who preferred working quietly behind a laptop instead of talking about dreams at family gatherings. But what Lily didn't know was that I had spent the last 7 years building and selling small digital companies. Quietly. Privately. Carefully. By the time she called me that night, I already had more money than anyone in our family could imagine. But I had never told them, not because I wanted to hide. Because I didn't need them to know. I believe in it, I finally told her. There was silence on the phone. Then she said something that surprised me. Then invest. I laughed softly. You've spent your whole life thinking I'm just playing with websites, I said. Why would you want my money? Because I'm desperate, she admitted. That honesty changed everything. So I asked one question. How much do you need? Her voice dropped. 10 million. Most people would have panicked hearing that number. But I didn't. Because I knew something Lily didn't. Her company wasn't failing because the idea was bad. It was failing because the wrong people were running it. I'll do it, I said. She gasped. Wait, seriously? Yes. But there's one condition. What? No one can know it's me. There was a long pause. Why? She asked. Because if your team thinks your little brother saved the company, they'll never respect you. She was quiet again. Then she said softly, You'd really do that for me? Yes. That was the night everything changed. 2 weeks later, a venture capital firm invested $10 million into Lily's company. Except it wasn't really a firm. It was me. Through layers of legal agreements and partnerships, I became the silent investor. And Lily never told anyone the truth. Not our parents, not her employees, not even her co-founders. Over the next 3 years, the company exploded. Revenue doubled, then tripled. New offices opened. The platform became one of the fastest growing tools for small businesses in the country. Investors started calling Lily a genius. Magazines wrote about her. Podcasts invited her to speak. And every time I saw her on TV talking about believing in your vision, I felt proud, because I knew how close she had come to losing everything. But success changes people. Slowly, quietly. At first, Lily would still call me sometimes. She'd ask my opinion on strategy, marketing ideas, hiring decisions. But as the company grew bigger, those calls became less frequent. Then they stopped completely. She didn't need advice anymore. She had new advisors, new friends, new investors, people with louder voices, people who wore expensive suits. And to them, I was just Lily's quiet brother with a little online shop. Which brings us back to that dinner table. Seriously? Lily said that night, still laughing. You should get a real job. My cousin joined in. Yeah, man. Lily's company is worth hundreds of millions now. Maybe she can hire you. Everyone laughed again. Everyone except Lily. For a moment, she looked uncomfortable. But she didn't stop them. She didn't say the truth. She didn't say that the company they were praising wouldn't exist without me. Instead, she said something that hurt more than the laughter. Running a real company isn't a hobby. I looked up at her. And for the first time in years, I realized something. Lily had started believing her own story. She had forgotten the night she called me crying. Forgotten the promise we made. Forgotten who had believed in her when no one else did. So I finished my dinner quietly. No arguments. No explanations. Just silence. 2 weeks later, Lily called me again. But this time her voice sounded different. Shaky, panicked. We have a problem, she said. What happened? Our biggest investors want to buy out the early shares. I already knew. Because technically I was the largest early shareholder. What does that mean? I asked calmly. They're offering $300 million for the early investor's stake. I leaned back in my chair. $300 million. Are you going to accept? I asked. I want to, she said. But there's one investor I can't reach. I almost smiled. Ooh. The silent one. The one who invested the first $10 million. I stayed quiet. We can't close the deal without their approval, she said. And nobody knows who they are. That's strange, I said. Yeah, she sighed. I wish I could just talk to them. Another pause. Then she asked something unexpected. Do you think someone like that would care about the company's future? Yes, I said. Why? Because they believed in it when nobody else did. She went quiet. Then she laughed nervously. You sound like you know them. I do. Silence. Wait, what? I took a slow breath. Lily, I said softly. I'm the silent partner. For a moment, I thought the call had disconnected. Then I heard her whisper. That's not funny. I'm not joking. More silence. You're serious. Yes. But that means. Yes. You own half the early shares. Her breathing got heavier. So when they offer $300 million. Yes. I'm the one they're buying from. The silence that followed was longer than anything before. Finally, Lily spoke. Her voice sounded completely different now. Small. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? For laughing at you. I looked out the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. It's okay, I said. No, she said quickly. It's not. Then her voice broke. I forgot. Forgot what? That you believed in me first. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she asked one last question. So are you going to sell? I thought about the dinner table. The laughter. The years of silence. Then I thought about the night she called me crying. And the dream she refused to give up. I'll sell, I said, her voice filled with relief. But there's one condition. What? You run the company the way you did at the beginning. What do you mean? With humility. She didn't answer. But I could hear her crying quietly. That deal closed 2 months later. The company was valued at over $1 billion. Lily became even more famous. And I walked away with $300 million. But the real victory wasn't the money. It was something much simpler. The next time we had dinner as a family, Lily told everyone the truth, every single detail, and when she finished, the table was silent. No laughter. No jokes. Just shock. Then Lily looked at me and said something I'll never forget. The smartest entrepreneur in this family was the one who never needed anyone to know. But the story didn't end that night. After Lily told everyone the truth, the room stayed quiet for a long time. My father stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. My mother looked confused, almost as if she was replaying every moment of my life in her head. My cousin, the same one who joked that Lily should hire me, suddenly looked very interested in his glass of water. No one knew what to say. Finally, my dad cleared his throat. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "that the money that saved Lily's company came from you?" I nodded. "And you never told us?" "No." "Why?" I shrugged slightly. "Because it wasn't about proving anything." My mother leaned forward. "But all those years when people thought you were just working on little projects." "I was," I said calmly. Lily let out a soft laugh through her tears. "You built and sold 6 companies," she said. "And none of us knew." My uncle shook his head. "This is unbelievable." But the truth was simple. Success had never been something I wanted to perform for people. I never cared about looking rich or impressive. I cared about building things quietly, solving problems, and walking away when the job was done. And that was exactly what I had done with Lily's company. After dinner, Lily asked if we could talk alone. We walked outside into the cool night air. The city lights reflected in her eyes as she looked at me. "I feel like an idiot," she said. "You're not. I spent years talking about leadership and vision," she continued. "And somehow I forgot the person who believed in me first." "You didn't forget," I said gently. "You just got busy." She shook her head. "No. I got arrogant." The honesty in her voice surprised me. She took a deep breath. "When the company started succeeding, everyone kept telling me how brilliant I was. Investors, journalists, employees. After a while, I started believing it. That happens to a lot of people." "But you never said anything," she said. "You never asked." She looked down at the pavement. "Why didn't you reveal yourself when the company started taking off?" "You could have taken credit." "Credit doesn't build companies," I replied. "Work does." She laughed quietly. "You really are the strangest entrepreneur I know." "Probably." We stood there for a moment in silence. Then she said something that surprised me. "You know what the crazy part is?" "What?" "The board always wondered about that silent investor. They called you the ghost." I raised an eyebrow. "The ghost?" "Yeah," she smiled. "The mysterious investor who saved the company and then disappeared." "That's a dramatic nickname." "Well, it fits." For the first time in years, the tension between us felt gone. Like we were kids again. But life had changed too much for things to go completely back. A few weeks after the dinner, Lily invited me to visit the company's headquarters. I hadn't stepped inside the building since the day the investment deal closed 3 years earlier. The lobby was massive now. Glass walls, bright lights, employees moving quickly in every direction. When Lily walked in with me, people immediately stood up. "Good morning, Lily." "Morning, CEO. Big meeting today." She greeted them warmly. But I could tell something was different. She wasn't walking like someone trying to impress people anymore. She was calmer, more grounded. As we entered the elevator, she looked at me and smiled. "You're about to meet the leadership team. Do they know?" "Not yet." "Should they?" She thought about it. "Actually, yes." The elevator doors opened onto the top floor. Inside the conference room, 12 executives sat around a long table. They were in the middle of discussing expansion plans when Lily walked in. Everyone stopped talking. "Good morning," she said. Then she gestured toward me. "I want to introduce someone important." They all looked at me politely, probably assuming I was a consultant or advisor. "This," Lily continued, "is my brother." A few people nodded. Then she added something that made the room freeze. "He's also the silent investor who funded this company when it was 2 weeks away from bankruptcy." For a second, nobody moved. Then one of the board members leaned forward. "You're serious?" "Yes," Lily said calmly. The man looked at me with wide eyes. "You're the ghost." I smiled slightly. "I guess so." The room exploded with questions. "How long were you involved? Why stay anonymous?" Did you help shape the early strategy? Lily raised her hand. Let me answer that, she said. Everyone quieted down. She looked around the room and said something that made me unexpectedly emotional. This company exists because someone believed in it before the world did. And I think it's time everyone understands that success is never a solo story. The executives nodded slowly. One of them turned to me. So what happens now? I shrugged. Nothing really. I already sold most of my shares. A few people looked shocked. You walked away from $1 billion company. Yes. Why? I thought about it for a moment. Because my job was finished. That answer seemed to confuse them. But Lily understood. After the meeting, we stood on the balcony outside her office. The city stretched endlessly below us. You know, she said. Most investors would have stayed and tried to control the company. I never wanted to control it. Then why invest? Because you needed someone to believe in you. She smiled. And now? Now you don't. She looked at me carefully. What are you going to do with the 300 million? I laughed. Probably the same thing I've always done. And what's that? Build something new. She nodded slowly. Quietly. Very quietly. She extended her hand toward me. Partner again someday. I shook her hand. Maybe. And as I walked out of that building, I realized something important. The greatest power in the world isn't money. It isn't fame. It isn't recognition. The greatest power is believing in someone when the entire world has already given up on them. Because sometimes, the person everyone underestimates is the one quietly holding the future in their hands. A few months passed after the deal closed, and life became quiet again. The media kept talking about Lily's billion-dollar company. Business magazines praised her leadership. Investors treated her like a visionary. And I went back to my small apartment and my laptop. Just like before. Most mornings started the same way. Coffee, silence, and a screen full of ideas waiting to become something real. But something had changed between Lily and me. She started calling again. Not because she needed money. Not because she needed help. But because she wanted my opinion. One evening she called while I was working. You're going to laugh at this, she said. What happened? The board thinks we should expand into Europe next year. And what do you think? I think we're moving too fast, she replied. I smiled. Then don't do it? It's not that simple, she said. When investors smell growth, they push harder. That's because growth looks good on spreadsheets. And in real life, growing too fast breaks companies. There was a pause. You sound like you've seen that before. More times than I'd like. Lily sighed. You know what's funny? What? I spent years trying to prove I was smarter than everyone else in the room. And now I just want to make the right decisions. That night we talked for almost 2 hours. About hiring the right people. About avoiding greedy investors. About building something that lasts instead of something that looks impressive. It reminded me of the early days. Before the fame. Before the headlines. Before success started whispering dangerous ideas into people's ears. A few weeks later, Lily invited me to speak to her leadership team. At first I refused. I don't do speeches, I told her. Please, she insisted. They respect you now. That's exactly the problem. What do you mean? When people respect you too much, they stop questioning you. But they need to hear your perspective. After a long pause, I agreed. The meeting room looked even bigger than the last time I visited. 20 executives sat around the table this time. Some of them had read articles about me, after Lily revealed the truth. Others simply knew me as the mysterious investor, who walked away with hundreds of millions. But when I stood at the front of the room, I said something they didn't expect. I'm not here to teach you how to make money. The room grew quiet. Because making money is the easiest part of building a company. A few people exchanged confused looks. The hard part, I continued, is staying humble after you make it. Lily leaned back in her chair, watching quietly. I looked around the table. 3 years ago, this company was 2 weeks from shutting down. Some of them nodded. Others looked uncomfortable. You remember that fear? I said. The fear of losing everything. More nods. That fear made you careful. It made you creative. It made you hungry. I paused for a moment, but success slowly removes that fear. The room stayed silent. And when that happens, I said softly, companies stop fighting to survive and start fighting to look successful. One of the executives finally spoke. So what should we do? I smiled. Remember the nights when you didn't know if the company would survive? He nodded slowly. Operate like those nights never ended. After the meeting, Lily walked with me toward the elevator. That was the shortest speech I've ever seen, she said. How long was it? 7 minutes. That's about my limit. She laughed. But it worked. What do you mean? They needed to hear that. We reached the elevator doors, but she didn't press the button yet. Instead, she asked something unexpected. Can I ask you something honestly? Of course. Why did you never chase attention? I thought about the question carefully. Because attention is expensive. She raised an eyebrow. How? It costs peace. She leaned against the wall, thinking. And money? What about it? You walked away from controlling $1 billion company. I walked away with 300 million. That's still a lot less than you could have made. True. So why leave? I looked at her. Because freedom is worth more. The elevator doors opened. Before stepping inside, Lily said something that stayed with me. You know, I used to think success meant standing at the top where everyone could see you. And now I think real success might be standing quietly behind the people you believe in. I smiled. You're learning. She shook her head. No. She said softly. I'm remembering. A year passed after that conversation. Lily's company continued growing steadily, but this time carefully. They didn't rush expansion. They didn't chase flashy headlines. Instead, they focused on building better tools for small businesses, and the results surprised everyone. The company became even stronger, more profitable, more respected. Meanwhile, I quietly started another small company. No investors, no press. Just a simple idea and a few talented people who believed in building things the right way. One evening, Lily visited my office. Compared to her headquarters, it looked tiny. Just a few desks, some computers, and a whiteboard full of messy ideas. She looked around and smiled. You really started from scratch again? Of course. With 300 million in the bank. That's the best time to start small. She sat down across from me. You know something? What? If people saw this place, they'd never believe you're one of the richest entrepreneurs in the country. That's fine. She looked thoughtful for a moment. Do you ever regret staying invisible for so long? I shook my head. No. Why? Because the people who truly matter always find out eventually. She nodded slowly. Then she stood up and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she turned back and said something that perfectly summarized everything we had been through. You know what the funniest part of our story is? What? For years, everyone thought I was the successful one. And you were just pretending to be an entrepreneur. I laughed. And now? She smiled. Now I know the truth. She opened the door and added one final sentence. The quietest people in the room are sometimes the ones building the biggest futures. And as she walked out, I looked at the small team working around me. Nobody here cared about fame. Nobody cared about headlines. They cared about building something meaningful, something real. And I realized the most powerful lesson of all. The world often celebrates the loudest success. But the greatest success is often built in silence.